Welcome to the Jacob Lenhoff Tours America interview with Cam Boggs, me, part 2. Now, let's go look at those models. So the first kit I built when I started building figure models was the Mobius Grim Reaper. It's not the greatest picture, but that's what the box looked like and basically what the model is supposed to look like. I had talked to a bunch of people in the Facebook groups of modeling and stuff, and they said, it's great for a beginner, it's easy customizable, and so on and so forth, and relatively inexpensive. And so I went ahead and got that, and this is after watching the Model Mania DVD I told you, which is basically the Bible. I mean, I was on fire, so it got my head full of all kinds of customizing ideas, and like I told you, I was never really happy with anything straight out of the box anyway. And as far as inspiration for the way I built the model, I got it from this book here, which was first published in 1981. It's The Tourist Guide to Transylvania. I had it when I was a young teenager, early teens. There's a painting in here by Les Edwards. And what this book is it's a fiction book about basically all the creatures in Transylvania and where you can see them. And the pictures are all painted by fantasy painters, So, seeing how the Grim Reaper was already cloaked in a robe, and it's standing in a graveyard, the model, and there's trees, this came to mind, and so I used this picture for my inspiration. Okay, so here he is at a distant shot before we get in looking at all the detail. The base was much smaller. Obviously, there was no wood underneath it. I used Dave's epoxy sculpt to expand the base to the edge of the wood. Put the grass on there, the weeds, everything. Moss the trees, moss the tombstones, customize them. We'll take a look at that here up in a zoom shot. But first, because of the UV powder I put in the clear that I put on him, take a little key fob UV charger to him. Or sunlight, anything like that. UV is just another fancy term for glow-in-the-dark paint. And there's a little secret button down here behind the nameplate. He has a ghostly glow. Yeah, I went crazy on this one. All right, let's take a look at the close-up. The kit came with a plastic rope around the waist and an hourglass, and I didn't like that, so I put my own twine on there. And really all I basically used was a bunch of shades of lighter greens and yellows to give him a ghastly glowing appearance that I applied with airbrush. The tree, I added texture to it. Was just smooth plastic, so I added texture to it, and then I put the moss and all that on there with diorama moss, things like that you can pick up at hobby stores. I had gotten some small paper leaves from Etsy and some mushrooms. I painted and curled the small leaves to make them more realistic and rotting looking. I had customized the tombstones with some letters I found at Joann Fabrics. So I put hope on that tombstone, as in the death of hope. All hope is gone. And my name on that one, just as kind of an artist's signature. Used cotton for the fog around the specter, the Reaper, and there's little holes in the bottom of it. You couldn't really tell in the video, but when the light is on, it kind of gives it a little glow around him on the bottom. There he is, the first one, the Grim Reaper. Took me probably about 3 or 4 months, if I remember correctly. And on to the next. And the second kit I built was a Mobius Creature of the Black Lagoon. Here's a picture of the box. Now, a little story about this is before they put this one out, they had the exact same creature, but with arms turned upward carrying a victim. And it was the same torso and legs for the solo one, and they just put new arms in it. And you'll see why in a minute that I bring that up. So here's the kit at a far back glance. The original kit came with the monster, and since I said before that it had a victim in the kit that came out before it, it came with an extra set of curled up arms, and it also came with this base, but way smaller. It wasn't thick like that with the rock. It had different plastic plant, and not even sure if it had that plant over there. It had a little lizard, and it had the creature skeleton hand that came with it, but all this was on a much smaller base. And what I did was I purchased a replacement head. That's an actual resin head, and this is a plastic model. And I took the other creature head and the arms, and I sculpted that body, that torso, out of clay. And I poured it into a resin mold like there was two of them, like it had a mate or something. And that was the first time I ever used acrylic resin for water. That was really fun. That took about, oh wow, I want to say that took about 8 months or something like that. That took a long time. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at it. Okay, so we'll start looking at the second creature, and you'll be able to tell if you don't remember. There are two different colors, and I went off of nature, as opposite sexes of animals. Sometimes one is brighter than the other, one stands out than the other, but in this one, I made the female darker. And you can see where I used water splash, basically like liquid clear silicone. It dries. You can make waves and all that because when you pour the resin, it's flat. Put a log in there in the water. That's a real stick that I turned into the log. But all these greenery are fake. There's a little lizard because they had these lizards in the movie. I can't remember what the name of them were. This is the fossil that they found at the beginning of the movie from another creature, because these were like a race of ancient humanoids. That's a real chicken bone up in there. Some nice rocks from the hobby store. A bit of greenery. And this is styrofoam I built up. Twig going in there. Back of the, now some of this is acrylic paint. Some of this is actually I did oil color washes over it. I just made his eyes gold, kind of like reflective. And you can't really go off of colored pictures of the creature because the film was black and white. I mean, we know he was green, but when people colorize pictures, there's so many variant colors. So I just kind of went with what I felt, things I'd seen, washed down in between all those little scales. And like I said, it took me about 8 months or so. I'll show you the third one. Okay, and the next kit is Dracula bat form from the 1992 movie Bram Stoker's Dracula, where Gary Oldman portrayed Dracula, and the kit is actually about that old as well. It came just with the figure, posed just like that when you put it together. What inspired me, obviously, was to create a scene from the movie. David Fisher, which is, to me, the master of models, who put out the DVD I told you, Model Mania, he actually worked on this model in the DVD while he was explaining it, and he made a different diorama out of it. But I, got plenty of ideas on knowledge on how to do things from that. Okay, so here, let's take a look at mine. Okay, sorry that's kind of dark, but I wanted you to see the lighting that I put into it. flashing light in the ceiling, like things are just going kind of crazy. A little Bible in the back there catching on fire. Because this was inspired by the scene where Van Helsing and them corner him while he's in bat form in a room and they're backing him out. Cross laying on the floor, smoldering. And I got a light on the wall back there. And there's rats all over the place. And this is a shadow of Dracula when he's in the old man form being cast by this figure. Because if you've ever seen the movie, his shadow is like its own entity. His body will do one thing and his shadow will go in a different, just unreasonable direction, doing different stuff because he's Dracula and he can do that. I made almost everything in this diorama except for like the pottery I didn't make. The rats I bought, but they were all one pose, and I'll show you when we get closer up. I cut them and re-sculpted them together so they would all have different poses. I made all the doors. I carved the floor, the roof, all of it. I made it all. I even made the name tag on a CNC machine. All right, so let me go ahead and turn the lights back on, and we'll look at him close up. Okay, so there's the nameplate. I'd taken, got that design from the internet, put it into the computer for the machine, and a CNC machine made that. And I put like a little texture in there to make it look like bubbling blood. I had stuck red paint between the floor that I carved and the base and set it down. That way it would run out like blood. One of the rats, or the little cross, because in the movie they held a cross up to him and he basically just melted it with his breath. And there's rats because when they backed him up into the corner, he turned into like a figure made out of rats, and then they all came apart and ran away. I painted all the floor, carved it all out of balsa foam. There's one back there jumping off the crate, knocking it over. That's a Bible that was on the crate that burst into flames because, well, that's the effect Dracula has on things. See his shadow of him as an old man cast upon the wall with his hair up in the bun and long ponytail. And he is not a happy camper at all. Right up there on the shelf, getting ready to jump off. Oh, you get to see my lighting up in there. Piece of tinfoil to reflect it down. I made the doorknob, the little bolts, everything. I made that door out of balsa wood. Got some dollhouse floor trim. That's what that is, like wall trim. And I reposed him. I sliced him open, heated him up, leaned him back, and used Abe's clay. And like I sculpted all this, I resculpted some of this. I made his fingers longer. Sorry, I made his claws longer. I tilted his head back and I resculpted all this fur. Let's get you a better look at the face. This is probably one of my favorite kits that I've done. There's a nice close-up look at his face. His blood red eyes. The shine on his eyes is not even real shine. I painted that on there. That's highlights. I was just, for being so early into doing this, I was really pleased when the way this came out. I took my time with this one. Yeah, I would think this one took like a year. I hope you enjoy this one as much as I do. On to the next. This one here at a distance is a resin kit 1/8 scale, sculpted by Michael Berglund of Spring Heel Jack. He's an urban legend. I believe started in England or something. He was like was an urban legend, like a ghoul kind of thing. It went around terrorizing the town and ran through the graveyards and all that. Most people that I've seen, because there's no box to this, it just came in like a regular box, but most people do their paint up green. I wanted a more ghastly color, so I made him like a bluish purple. I airbrushed the base colors, and I went in and did the rest of it with pastels. Added my own groundwork as usual. You know, mossed everything up, rusted fence. All right, let's go ahead and look at a close-up of it. And I had also went in with red and blue colored pencils and real finely drew veins in the legs and arms. Used the pastels between the muscles. I glossed over his eye, pale iris, to make him look like he was going blind. Plenty of washes in the coat, jacket. This was a really fun model to make. Okay, and this is Mr. Barlow, also known as the Master, from the Stephen King made-for-TV movie Salem's Lot back in I think it was late 70s, something like that. There's, what is his name? I think Danny or something like that. He's been turned into a vampire trying to come into his friend's room. And, you know, vampires can only be invited, and he's trying to come in so he can turn him into a vampire. This beautiful kit was sculpted by Mark Van Tine. It didn't come with the glass or anything like that. I added the curtains, the glass. I put the fog in there. His eyes glowed in the movie. I'll give you a side shot of it. Here it is from the side. The base is representing the house in the movie because the master was down in the cellar. And you go in through the back. But I had this casted hollow so I could go ahead and use this as an access to put a light in it. So let's go ahead and check it out lit up. Alrighty, there he is. Glow in the dark style. I used the same paint on the eyeballs that I did in the Grim Reaper one I showed you earlier. And I just got a little Velcro light thingy that stuck inside there because it was like a backlit fog in the movie. Yeah, see, if you give his eyes a good charge up, my room's very, very dark where I'm recording this, so he doesn't ever see any sunshine really here. But you charge him up, quite a creepy effect. All right, I'll give you a real quick close-up on him. Can't really get a close-up of Danny there. I believe that is his name. I can't remember. Because everything wants to reflect off of the plastic. But his eyes also glow in the dark too. But they've never really been charged by the light. Because he was also a vampire. And the fog, the mist. I bought some fabric, added them. See if I can lift it up some. The curtains that were plaid in the movie. The misty fog. He had big front protruding fangs. Very, very reminiscent. Almost basically looks exactly like Nosferatu from the old vampire movie. The veins in the eyes, different colors. They were all bloodshot, glowing. I used pastels and airbrush on this. Looks like he fought Tyson. But yeah, Mr. Barlow the Master. On to the next one. And the final one, the last one I worked on, is Gary Oldman as Dracula from Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. This is like when he floated down the steps, you know, representing that in the movie. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you do. This is a resin model, 1/6 scale, so it's pretty big. The thing about this model is, this is a little shameless self-promotion, is if you go over and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Boggy Creek Life, when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a drawing and give this model away. So, yeah, if you'd like to be part of that, go over there and give a subscribe. And if you like models, just check it out. I'm constantly putting up videos of new kits, old kits, things I'm working on. Let's go ahead and get a closer look at him. He's sculpted by Jeff Yeager. which is a pretty big guy in the industry. But it's pretty much, make him look like the movie. Pale, old, withered man. He's actually much paler in person than he is in the camera. And for some reason, it just doesn't want to focus great. But if you want to see pictures, I do have pictures of him too on the Facebook Boggy Creek Studio page. Really wish there we see the detail in the eyes, the hair. Like I said, he's a bit whiter in real life than he is. Looks like old pasty translucent skin. And those were decals that came with the model, thank goodness. This was tedious painting this gold. But this was also a very fun model to paint. And this one, it probably took me the better half of, I'd say somewhere around 6 months to do this. But there he is, Gary Oldman as Count Dracula. Alrighty, and that's the last one. I hope you enjoyed them. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed looking at those as much as I enjoyed building them and showing them to you. And I would like to thank Jacob Lenhoff Tours America again, an opportunity for getting my work out there and just telling everybody a little bit about me and why I like to do the things that I do. That would be it. I hope to see you all out there on the internet.